I am not fluffy. I am not big-boned. I am not Rubenesque. I am fat. And I live in a society where fatness is considered a moral and personal failure. Thankfully, a group in 1969 came together and formed an organization called NAAFA, or the National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance. NAAFA is sort of at the forefront of fighting size-based and fat-based discrimination, which is a type of discriminatory practice very common in the United States, where people are judged based on their size and their fat. Traditionally speaking, sources of size-based discrimination tend to come in three types: emotional, physical, and legal. Don't believe in size discrimination exists? Well, let me show you some examples. Only 2 weeks ago, in the Wall Street Journal, an author, Anthony Daniels, referred to fat people as mastodons. In the Wall Street Journal. According to the Indian Telegraph, an Indian man refused to let his wife leave the house for several months and ended up burning her to death because he was ashamed she was fat. According to an October 2009 Times Magazine article, is cases where social services are coming into houses and removing their children from families are on the rise because, again, the children are fat. Even when parents have documentable proof that the children are having better nutrition, seeing the doctor, and enrolled in some sort of weight loss program to conform to social services or court orders. That is size-based discrimination in a nutshell. We do live in a sizeless world. In the United States, the prevalence of size-based discrimination is so natural, and it's happened so often that it doesn't really happen so often that it really kind of isn't taken for granted, really. Unless, again, you are fat or you're interested in fat studies and you tend to see it more, like I do. One example, which is very, very common, and I never really thought of it before until I heard about it, is called the headless fatty syndrome. I'd show you a picture. It was actually on my PowerPoint, but unfortunately I could not do that today. Headless fatty syndrome is the tendency for media outlets and newspaper articles to, when discussing fatness and obesity, they tend to cut off the head or they obscure the face so you can only just see the fat person. By doing this, it sort of segregates the person and the individual from the fat body, and it sort of, again, it's as if we're going to, by doing that, we block out the understanding that there's a person there who has feelings, who has opinions, and does not appreciate being judged purely on the size of their body. That is de facto size, by the book, size discrimination. Legal forms of size-based discrimination that I should mention include the fact that only one state in the country actually has a law on the books that prohibits size-based discrimination, and that's Michigan. 3 other cities have similar laws, but again, one state and 3 cities. That's it. Anywhere else in the U.S., you are totally allowed to discriminate based on size and fatness. Doesn't make me happy to be American. Kind of going back, in education, 65% of obese children are likely to be bullied in schools, according to CNN.com. As a student who in school was fat, I can tell you that that really doesn't surprise me at all. Thankfully, we're in a culture now that tends to take bullying far more seriously than we once did. But again, 65% is an unacceptable number for any demographic group. NAAFA, knowing these statistics, tends to try to sort of counter these and increase the understanding that these incidents do happen. They increase reporting on these incidents, and so other people may know. These things tend not to be picked up by major news outlets to the level they really should, and so NAAFA sort of fills that void. They've also been in very public media disputes with other groups, including PETA. Again, because other groups don't like to stand up. For reasons that to this day I don't fully understand, size-based discrimination is encouraged, and again, and you see this through legal means, through federal means, through you see it again and again and again, and NAAFA sort of fills that void. Continuing on, NAAFA recently has encouraged an alternate healthcare program called HAES. It's Health at Every Size. The main distinction between HAES and more traditional forms of healthcare is that HAES purports that weight is not directly causal in terms of health, that health is more the byproduct of diet, exercise, and positive self-esteem. They do this, and they also tend to cite studies and programs and encourage other re-examinations of healthcare and dieting to show that really traditional healthcare and traditional weight loss are very, very biased. For example, 95% of all diets tend to fail. HAES also tends to re-examine things that we just take for granted, whether or not the effectiveness of bariatric surgery. There is no long-term study on bariatric surgery, and yet it's been encouraged for the past 10 to 15 years. There's been no studies, and any studies that have been done tend to show very frightening side effects. Again, they won't be reported. NAAFA and HAES also cite other studies to support them, including the Journal of New England Medicine that did a study several years ago that showed that fat individuals had a lower rate of mortality compared to their thinner counterparts. So technically we're healthier in some weird way, but you won't hear that. Again, so HAES and through NAAFA, they're trying to combat the idea of fat people as unhealthy or something that has to be fixed as sort of counter idea. As a fat person, I've long thought that no one can really know what it's like to be fat unless you are fat. I cannot, even if I had hours at my disposal, to explain the sadness and frustration and pure anger I felt at being fat and people making that known that I am fat and they disapprove. But through NAAFA, I have found the means to sort of express some of that emotional response and sort of to fuel my writing and helping others be a little bit more educated about the views and that this class-based discrimination does exist and it's on the increase. While NAAFA is a small organization, it is growing, and its message of positivity and acceptance is growing, and with your help it can grow even further. But even more importantly, spread the message that there is this thing called size-based discrimination, and with your help we can work on just decreasing it. Thank you.